The Jaguars and the Indianapolis Colts coming up in week 5. Spero Dedes has the call on CBS Sports. Good to see you. Hey, the Jags are 0-4. I don't think anybody saw this coming. The Jags is the only winless team in football. What's up, Spero?
Hey JP, always good to hear your voice. Yeah, every time we talk, there's something exciting, whether it's positive or negative, going on down there with this team. The Urban Meyer season, which I'm sure is something that everyone wants to forget down there a couple years ago. Then they turn a corner with Doug UP, and then I got to say I'm as surprised as anyone else. We talked about this team at the end of last year, obviously with a disappointing kind of second half to their season, but I thought that they addressed some areas of need in the off season, and so all of us, like many people down there, the fan base down in Florida, thought that this was a team that was turning a corner, and it solidified itself. But this start, to me, is one of the biggest surprises around the league through the first 4 weeks of the season. There's no doubt.
We know the investment in the offseason that the ownership and the personnel office made. I mean, they paid the quarterback. Um, Defensive end Josh Hines Allen, of course, got the big contract. Tyson Campbell, Foye Oluokun got an extension. I mean, all these guys. Well, a lot of them are not on the field right now. I mean, Tyson Campbell
Mm,
hasn't played. Josh Hines Allen was in the protocol this week. Foye Oluokun's out for a number of weeks, and the quarterback's not playing well. So
yeah.
your big players have to play and play well, and that's not happening right now. So the only one out there right now, at least, is the quarterback. His performance kind of gears this whole thing. How does he take that step and become the guy that can overcome some deficiencies?
Well, I mean, there's two schools of thought. One is that you can't really evaluate where this team is right now because of the injuries. And the other school of thought, of course, is, well, look, if we're going to pay our supposed franchise quarterback 275 million, he's got to elevate the team in these moments where maybe everything around him is not ideal, is not where you want it to be. I think the truth is probably somewhere in the middle. I know my partner Adam Marcelletta was breaking down some of the film this week, and it's something we'll talk about, I'm sure, during the game on Sunday. Is that Trevor has had some opportunities, despite all the stuff around him, despite all the instability, he's had chances to make plays, and he hasn't necessarily been at his best. So yes, there are some built-in excuses with the injuries. Yes, they're missing some key guys defensively. Obviously, Oluokun is a monster. Hopefully, Hines Allen is okay. But just in terms of the offense, despite all that other stuff, I think that there have been some opportunities, and Trevor's just got to play better. I mean, this is not a good start for him. You go back to last year, JP, he was so good. I think it was like a 16, 17 game stretch where he was like 13-4. He was really starting to trend upwards towards the upper echelon of quarterbacks. But to not have one to start now, I think going on 8, 9 games, and you just look at his numbers, he's just not the same quarterback. So there's something going on with Trevor. They got to figure it out. And now with this contract, it just adds another layer of pressure on him, on Doug Peterson. And when your owner goes into a season and says, look, we need to win now, that changes everything. The tenor of everything has changed. And now, these guys are the sense of urgency, I think, is as high as it's been.
Spero Dedes, CBS Sports with us. And yeah, the pressure on the coaching staff as well, of course. Doug Peterson now 0-4. It's his worst start
Mm.
as a head coach. And we've seen what he's done in the past. He's turned teams around from unlikely places. Here in Jacksonville, he did it a couple years ago. Certainly in Philadelphia, when the quarterback got hurt, they made the Super Bowl run. This would be a different level. I mean, it feels like. How does Doug Peterson do this, and can he do it again?
Well, it was interesting to see and hear Doug's post-game press conference after the last one on Sunday. I saw a coach who was tired. I saw a coach who was, you know, uncharacteristically stressed with this situation. Doug has always come across as someone who's even keeled, laid back, a guy who, when the bullets start flying, look, he played the toughest position in sports for years. He knows what chaos feels like. But I saw a guy up there who maybe he's had enough of some of these questions, who's calling the plays and all that stuff. Now, there's this report out this week that maybe the locker room is not where you want it to be, and maybe there's some second guessing. Maybe there's some guys that have tuned out a little bit. That when I start to hear that stuff, that starts to become a little concerning. So now can Doug and his staff get their arms around this thing before it spirals out of control? Because now, you're in 0-4 territory. If you look at the history of the league, very few teams, maybe I have to check this week to see if one team have got into the playoffs. Okay, so that's now if there's a risk of losing a season and losing a locker room this early, barely a month into the season, you're starting to enter some dangerous water. So this is a monster game for this club this week. I thought they performed well last week, all things considered, to have a chance to win down there in Houston. But boy, you lose this week and things could get ugly there quickly.
1992 San Diego Chargers, the only
You're all
0-4
over.
team to make the playoffs. Bobby Ross, I think, was the head coach of that
Oh
team.
man,
Been a while.
Long time. That's a long time ago. Yep.
It certainly is. The Indianapolis Colts, 2-2. They've got quarterback questions right now. Anthony Richardson, surprise, is injured again. We'll see his status for this week, but Joe Flacco is a guy who's played for 18 years and carved this Jaguars team up last year in Cleveland. So, where are the Colts right now? 2-2. You are what you are, and there are a lot of questions in Indy, but they're 2 games better than the Jags.
Yeah, we actually had their game against the Steelers last week. Joe Flacco, the guy's just unbelievable. He's like, I think he's 57 years old, and he just keeps coming in and carving teams up. It was wild. It really was. To come in, didn't skip a beat. Their offense changed considerably, obviously, much different style quarterback than Anthony Richardson. Couple of things. Anthony Richardson now, I think they're getting to the point now. He's played 8 career games in the NFL, and he's finished 4 of them. And all of his injuries have come on design runs. So I think they're getting to a point now where they gotta sit and really think about how they're going to handle Anthony Richardson when they play. Shane Steichen's play calling, all of those things that I think they have to consider, because when he's played, the few games that he has played, you can clearly see the talent. I mean, this kid is a potentially elite quarterback. Obviously, dual threat. Everyone talks about his legs. He's got a cannon of an arm, and he's got pretty good accuracy. I know he's made some bad decisions with some pretty bad picks the first part of this season, but it's all there for him. He's got the tools. They just have to figure out, how are we going to protect this kid when he plays? Number 2, how does the offense now change, not only with Flacco, but potentially Jonathan Taylor's status? Because, a big part of what made Jonathan Taylor so lethal, everyone knows he's arguably the best running back in the NFL. But when you add him in an offensive backfield with AR, it puts the defense in a really tough predicament. When Richardson left the game last week, Pittsburgh was able to really lock in on the box and lock in on Jonathan Taylor, and it really took away Indianapolis's running game. So that'll be interesting to see this week if AR is out and Jonathan Taylor can play. We don't know if Taylor can play. His status is still up in the air, but this is a tough week, I think, for Jacksonville's defense. How do you prepare? You don't know which of these guys are playing. Are they both out? Is one in? Is the other out? Flacco drastically changes who they are offensively. But I'll say this: if it is Flacco, this is not going to be a walk in the park for Jacksonville's defense. I mean, he can clearly still play, and he adds an element that they don't have when Anthony Richardson's out there.
And the Jaguars have had some pass rush issues
Sure.
for guys who don't move around and run into pressure. I mean, that's what Anthony Richardson might do. Defensively, what's the strength of the Colts defense?
Well, the strength is, one of them is your old buddy Gus Bradley. You look at how they started the first 2 weeks of the season, and they gave up in week 2 at Green Bay. They gave up 261 yards on the ground. We visit with Gus. He's one of our all-time favorite people. He's as positive a coach as I've ever been around in the NFL. And he called the first half in Green Bay embarrassing. I've never heard Gus talk about his team so negatively before. And he said, we had to build them back up spiritually after that game. I mean, they were so broken, and their confidence was so shaken. And to think that in less than 2 weeks, they went out and played the way they did last week. They were phenomenal against the Pittsburgh offense that has been really good with Justin Fields and very efficient. They were incredible last week, considering the fact that they lost 2 more starters. Kenny Moore was out last week. Kwity Paye went down. They didn't have him. They've already been without DeForest Buckner, Samson Ebukam, who led them in sacks last year. So all those things considered, to hold it together the way they did, Jalen Jones was phenomenal. Some of these young corners that we didn't know much about, to be honest, going into the season, they were flying all over the place. And so I think it's a testament to Gus and his defensive staff what they've been able to do. And as they get healthier, I think there's a potential for this defense to be, not just maybe good, but I think potentially really good.
All right, real quick. Power rankings AFC South. What you got? I know who's last, but
Hmm. Man, obviously Houston at the top. Tennessee, a little bit of an unknown. I mean, they looked a little bit better with their Monday night win, but obviously they are still figuring some things out. Indianapolis, I guess number two with potentially what they can be. And if Jacksonville figures it out, JP, I mean, who knows? Maybe they don't make the playoffs, but maybe they make life miserable for some of their friends in that division. So man, it's a tough division. Every time we think the AFC South is maybe on the way up, some of these teams kind of have some issues. So we're all hoping they figure it out because, as you know, my buddy Adam Archuleta and I kind of live in the AFC South. So we're rooting for these teams to get into some smooth waters and to hopefully have a decent season.
never lacks for entertainment down here. And we always enjoy getting to visit with you as well, Spiro. Thanks for the time, man. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, JP. Always a pleasure.